There we go. All right, cool. So this is going to be a jam-packed training. We, like Jason and I were reviewing this thing. We may not be able to get to a Q&A after. So please, if you can, just put your questions in the chat. I want to be able to answer those as best as possible. But what we're going to be covering today is guys, this guy is the person that you want to learn from. This is actually the same that, like, I never did telesales before until I met Jason. Jason and I worked together for about 3-4 months, and that's where I really mastered the art of telesales. Like, I was still learning then, but that's when I really got comfortable selling over the phone. This is the guy who I've learned from. So get your pens and papers out, take notes, because this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been doing it for a while now, and it's gonna be good. What we're gonna, just to highlight some things we'll be covering, is leads, what kind of leads to be working, what your ROI should kind of look like, what you should expect in that regard. And then this is going to be very tactical, how to overcome objections at the beginning of the call. I'm not interested, I already got it taken care of. The middle of the call, how to overcome objections before you get them, right? So how to kill zombies is what they say. So how to overcome objections before you get them, like the critical, banking, social, things like that. And then how to overcome back end, to think about it, talk to a spouse, I need to shop around. We're going to go into how Jason's able to maintain over a 90% persistency in telesales, what to look for in a dialer or appointment setter, dials and presentations to aim for, and the last thing we're going to end on is how a new agent could go from just licensed to making $10,000 a month. Guys, this is going to be the best telesales training that you guys want to listen to. So Jason, I really appreciate you coming on this call. A little bit about Jason before we kind of get into it. His record, and a lot of people want to do this in a month. This guy did $27,000 in business in 4 days, right? 4 days, right?
Yeah, I did that twice. Well, I think this back last year I had hit 28, just to show it wasn't a fluke, you know.
There we go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it takes a groove and, you know, some build up and some pipelines and stuff like that to hit that marker. But I appreciate you having me, Johnny. Yeah, hopefully I can provide a lot of value today to you all. And just, you know, feel free to stop me and ask some questions, or we can, I guess, do some Q&A at the end, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll kind of hold that to the end. If you guys really want to ask a question, you guys can drop it in the chat. If you want us to cover something, drop it in the chat. If you want to wait till the end, we'll take a few questions. And then also we're doing 100 lead giveaway at the end as well. So stay tuned for that as well. So kind of let's just hop right in. So Jason, you started in the field. Why'd you end up going telesales?
Yeah. So I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and I started off in life insurance doing mortgage protection from the very beginning, with the infamous National Agents Alliance. And we were doing mortgage protection face-to-face. I've been doing that since 2011. And I went to an opportunity meeting up in Cincinnati and was brought into business. Not much training, just here's how you write a Moo app. Here's an app. Call me in the house. So, you know, there wasn't a lot of training and, you know, stuff like that, you know, modules and mentorship and things. I mean, they maybe did a ride along with you once, but, you know, you're just kind of thrown out to the wolves. So you develop your own systems and you find your own little niche of how you sell mortgage protection or insurance, period. But I was doing that for 9 years. And then it was late 2019, early 2020, the COVID thing really pushed me to do it completely over the phone. But I was doing some final expense on the side with a few people here in this office. You know, I had a little final expense call center, so doing telesales while I was still, I had some pre-qualifiers and agents in-house and remote for final expense. And I was in the office here trying to manage that and call and set appointments for the field, go out to the field, manage that from the field, the call center, and then still do face-to-face. But what I ended up doing was just taking some of the things I've learned from final expense telesales, from setting that up, and applied it to doing mortgage protection. Taking it from the field, which was pretty taboo to do it over the phone for mortgage protection, but learn how to do that, apply some of those techniques to doing mortgage protection completely over the telephone. There was like a month or two crutch of using Zoom, but I realized to hit large volumes and hitting enough families in the evening, which is a critical period of time to do mortgage protection or life insurance sales, that I didn't have time for a 70-year-old to find a Zoom link. So, what I end up doing was just having a technique of doing completely over the phone, no Zoom, and just keeping to a cookie cutter set of carriers, or go-to carriers, I guess you would call it, and then having easy methods of making it, or the easy methods for the customer to go through an application process. So that way there's not a lot of pushback whenever it comes time doing the application, or them just hopping off the phone with you. So making it easy for them, a nice process, relationship, all that stuff. When selling insurance, applying it to doing it over the phone. But yeah, that's how I got into doing it completely over the telephone, mortgage protection.
And you haven't looked back since.
Haven't looked back since. Yeah. So
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're let's look at some leads, right? So what is a good lead spend for an agent wanting to, like a new agent, right? And then an agent wanting to issue about $10,000 a week. What's that kind of look like?
So I did a breakout session at 8% last year, and that was actually the topic. So what is like an adequate first level goal for doing, doing telesales, more specifically mortgage protection over the phone, production goals per week? And that would be 7 to 8,000, and then hitting from there, 10,000 a week. And this is gross, not with, because you would minus out your lead bill.
Yeah.
And then, if you're trying to reach 15,000, 20,000 consistently, which is what a realistic top producer will do in production each week, you need some help. So there's like breaking down the telesales into 3 categories of work. So you got prospecting, presenting, and then processing apps and taking care of backend stuff. So you're doing all 3 from the very beginning. And when you're consistently doing work and buying the right amount of leads and showing up and putting in the right amount of activity every single week, you're going to hit 7 to 8,000 in production per week. And then from there, you need help to hire yourself out of those 3 things. So one of the first things I hired myself out of was a processor, because that wasn't really an income producing activity. I mean, it was, but it's not there was no sales involved. So I hired myself out of that. And a lot of times it's good to try to find, maybe, like I had my mother do it, and not everyone has that opportunity to have their mother help out with some apps.
Yeah.
for $100 a week, right? So a good idea would be to find someone part-time, so you're not paying out a full-on salary to someone processing apps and following up on conditions. So there's hiring yourself out of that, so that way you're just making phone calls, doing the prospecting, and then doing the presenting. So to get past that, the next thing would be to hire someone to make phone calls for you. And a lot of people end up starting with that and trying to take the inexpensive, cheap route of doing that, by offshore, dialers.
Classic, right?
Yeah, it's classic, and it sometimes works, but you're going to go through a lot of people. Um, it's hard to hold them accountable, and then if you're spending a lot of money on leads, you want most of them to convert to appointments. But what you're doing there is you're reserving your energy and your time to present and be most effective in that second P, that presenting, which is the most important part. So keeping a full calendar of presentations each day, 7, 8, 10 appointments, sometimes overlap them. I have an appointment setter who's more of like an assistant, and a way to have a long-term solution to that prospecting would be to get someone who's onshore, someone who you can pay $600, $700 a week, $800 a week eventually. You want to graduate them and promote them and increase their pay over time, and have them do more than just make phone calls to set appointments. I mean, anybody setting appointments is, yes, exactly. Prospecting is setting appointments. So that's calling the people. Um, it does take away from you running on the spot. So I do mortgage protection. So there's a lot of appointment setting, more so than doing like final expense where you want to run it on the spot. What you could do, I think Johnny does this, is have like a Slack or a communication platform that appointment setter can say, hey, I have someone on the phone, or let's say Halo or transfer, and then Johnny will respond, and then the person will do a warm introduction and send it over. And then you can communicate with them at that point, or they can set a appointment an hour later if you're on the phone, but work together to make sure you're on the phone doing as many presentations a day as you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would, so what I do is I have Angie, she's been working with me for be 3 years this August. I have her set my appointments for me, and I make sure she has plenty of new stuff every single week consistently coming in for
Yeah.
new leads. But I also have her help out with agents. Like she'll do, some CRM stuff. It helps break up the monotony of, getting pounded on the phone and making phone calls and you know, having to do this monotonous task all the time. So if you can commission them to do something else to help out your business, talk to some new agents, if you're building your agency, you can have, instead of you being the first person that calls the person inquiring about being part of the team, you can have, that person screen people interviewing, and then set up, they can set up an appointment for you to call back and talk to that agent if they're qualified. And you're preserving and you're protecting your time that way. And
Yeah.
That's what you're going to find is you're going to have eventually, when you get past that adequate 7 to 8,000 a week, is that you're going to be making your time is worth more than the money you're spending on the help. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so you want to graduate into being able to have an appointment setter setting appointments for you constantly, 8 to 10 appointments a day, which is great. I think that's huge because you're just presenting all day. You're walking into a day full of appointments, which is awesome. What like for somebody not at that stage yet, what is a good kind of lead spend that they should be looking at to be able to do that?
sure. So are we talking about like general life, FE, mortgage protection in general? Like what so your team, how many
Well,
years?
this is this is a mix. This is just people in my like private Facebook group.
Cool.
And
Okay.
so it's like not everybody's on my team. Some are, some aren't. And so it's like a lot
Sorry, I
of
didn't
people are doing final expense. But then other people are doing general life. So it's kind of like, what would you say on those both sides of the spectrum?
Okay.
Because it'll
Uh,
be different, right?
yeah, I mean, yes and no. So that's a lot of people will want to come into this business, life insurance, and try to do $400, in leads, and then wait to see how that works out, and then buy some more with a couple apps they've written from it, if they wrote a couple apps from it.
Yeah.
And that could have been, to a lead vendor where you're really getting $300 worth of leads. So you really got to step into this business, honestly, with several $1,000s. If not, you really have to grind it out and then keep asking for second chance leads and whatever you can get your hands on, and showing up to convert as much as you can. And when you're showing that activity and that you care and that you're putting forth, 100%, the person who's helping you into this business, your mentor, should be, helping you out with leads or giving you a path to where you can get yourself, the right amount of new leads with, one out of the two deals you write over the next week or next couple of days, and then ramp it up from there. So, I would say for any of the verticals, final expense, mortgage protection, general life, $2,000-$3,000 would be a good entry point. But spreading that out the right way. I mean, I know people who have blown through 15 grand and actually 22 grand in 2 months with a lead vendor that just kind of gave them crap and didn't really get any traction. So yeah, you got to make sure you have a good lead source, something that's worked and trusted, and you see that have had results. Really ultimately, I know not everyone's going to be in a position to do this, but you do need to start generating your own leads, like Facebook, or if you're not doing that, it'd be from the people who brought you into this business need to have their own way of producing leads and not just getting it from vendors and saying, here, go to this vendor. Yeah. So
100%. I mean, you have a super unique lead source that it's like, it was crazy with the mortgage protection side, which is crazy.
Yeah. Did I answer the question? I forgot.
Yeah. So that pretty much I rough at 750 to 1,000 a week. Like if you're trying to hit 10,000 a week, 1,500 even, what's that look like for you? What are you spending on leads?
So yeah, that also depends on what kind of inventory you come into the business with. Like you'll need that big purchase to get some stuff to call on, so you can have a schedule set up in a routine, and then kind of bring it down a little bit, so that way you can get your first couple apps in there and get paid, because you're going to work out kinks with contracting, how you're getting paid. There's things that come up, so you don't have to go heavy like your first 4 weeks. I would go heavy your first week and then scale it down a little bit and then ramp it up from there, because there's some learning curve to it too, and you don't want to blow through your budget too quick. So
starting on age leads and then working towards those new leads, right?
Yeah, but don't wait too long to get to new leads, because you might get in your own head that this isn't a fit for you, when it very well could be. Maybe it's not, but when you're calling on all leads all the time, your belief level in the system that you're investing in and going in, that you're investing your time in and taking a chance on, is going to start to go down. And that's really going to cripple your success, your chance of success in this. Yeah. So you got to think, you have to move fast. You have to have no plan B. You have to have just that plan A and stick to it, because you will have failures and you will have to get through those failures, trusting the system that you're doing and making sure you're still putting in, ideally it's best to have whoever you're getting leads from, that you have it on an auto purchase. That is that force function of you buying leads means that if you have a bad week, you're not pulling back from buying leads, because that next group of leads could be what sets you up, and has you keep moving forward. So make sure, you do set up something that's an auto purchase each week, so you have fresh stuff coming in, because you do need those quick wins. And then the people who aren't immediate buyers, you can work on them over the next 2 weeks and try to get a hold of them and follow up.
Follow up is huge. Huge,
Yeah.
huge, huge. Do you track your ROI on leads, and what's a good ROI if you do?
Um, I'm really bad at that. I just show up and write and do my best all as best I can each week. I try to stick to, with doing it not 100% full time anymore because I'm helping agents out. I try not to do anything less than 8 apps a week. So if it's at that eight, if it's 1,000 AP average, then $8,000 a week.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some good pops in there every once in a while. I usually do 8 to 10 on average, and then I'll have 4 weeks where I'll write 12 to 15 apps a week, and then it'll kind of come back down because I'm trying to get caught up. I'm trying to help other people out. I love innovating. I have my own CRM now, and I have the leads that I've created for mortgage protection getting dropped in there, and have a nice process for people to be successful with the mortgage protection stuff.
Yeah.
General life, I like general life. It's only going to be digital leads.
Yeah.
So yeah, Facebook's a good way to do that. If you can do your own branding and create your own general life leads to get your costs down, sub $10, sub $5, you can have some really good success with general life insurance.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Guys, like, I'll just say it, like, Jason's a super, super humble guy. Like, he's a killer. So like he knows his stuff in that regard. So let's go into presentation. So when you're doing a presentation, Doug asks, what is an average call roughly? Like how much time would you say?
So you'll have some people who are ready to buy. That could be like a 15-minute, 20-minute call. Make sure you have an easy signature process if you're doing, and we're just talking about telesales, right?
Yes.
Okay, so an easy signature process for the phone. There's a couple good carriers that my go-to, and has been my go-to for many years, is American Amicable. They have a voice signature. They let you appeal a dispute, a turn down really easily, and you can get stuff approved. You can see the prescriptions on the spot, but the voice signature and the method of getting an app done is so easy, and that people love that easy process. And they a lot of times will pay an extra $5 just to make it easy and quick instead of saving $5 and going through a double email signature.
Horrible,
So,
right?
yeah, that's stuck on a thread on their Gmail, and they're like, there's no second email.
Yeah.
So
well, you taught me that the client experience on the phone is huge. And to have that dialed in, I think that's like part of where it comes in with experience that you start learning, because somebody will be happy if you can get them approved right away, and that they're not having to wait 50
people
minutes
are
to an
busy,
hour,
man.
right?
Yeah, they, especially if you hit them off guard, like, oh my gosh, this guy's having me buy life insurance today. They don't want to have to go through a long process. They want something quick and easy. And then it doesn't mean you have to never call them again. Like, that's what's helped out. We can quickly touch on that. What's helped out my persistency at 93% with American Amicable is that I call them 2 days after I write them to say, hey, got stuff in processing, or hey, you got approved. And then I'll make another call once they're approved, or if they were approved on that first call, I'll say, hey, did you get your policy? Just want to make sure you didn't have any questions, or make sure I answer any questions you might have. But that goes a long way when you call your customers 2 times after writing them, because most agents don't do that. Most salespeople don't do that. So you just can't have in your head, like, well, if I call them, will they tell me they want to cancel? No, they won't. I mean, we naturally want to think that, because we got that sale and we're like, oh gosh, just hope they keep it. No, they're more likely to keep it if you call them again.
Yeah.
and it could be a 30-second phone call. Like, hey, just make sure you get, make sure you crack open that policy when you get it, look over the numbers, 12-month persistency or 13-month rolling persistency. So, look over the numbers, look over the spelling, make sure, that everything looks right of the beneficiary names. And then, and just, call me if you have any questions, make sure your parents know about your policy, make sure your your family knows about your policy and where it's at. And when you say stuff like that, it makes it again about the why and why they're doing that.
Yeah.
And it really helps like cement that customer and keep them for a long time. And then if you're selling other stuff, that's also a good time to cross sell.
Yeah.
You provide them a good service, and then you can say, hey, I'm here for you and your family, and I care about what I do and the people I help, and I'm here just sell this, whatever it might be. But did you want me to go over some objections real quick?
That's good.
How
So
much,
we'll
how
start
much
at
time do we have?
we have, as long as you're willing to go. I was thinking an hour to go on this, but it's totally up to you kind of how we could go.
Just play by ear.
Yeah, so we'll start with objections, right? Because this is huge. So, and we could kind of do a little bit of role playing here as well, and you could break it down too. I want to put a huge emphasis on more of the back end, like the middle and the back end, killing objections before we get them on the back end, how to gain trust, things like that. But in terms of like when you're calling aged leads, common objections that I found of like, hey, I'm not interested anymore. I already got it taken care of. I already got my policy. Just take me off your list. And I don't remember like calling in or filling out the form. How do you overcome those? And what's your kind of approach on those?
On the front end, I mean, it's letting them, you're taking it away from them a little bit, saying, I don't know if I would say taking it away. I would say you're trying to find out why they inquired. Okay. And for whether it be a general life lead form or a mortgage protection response, you go over a little. What I do is I go over a little bit of the benefits with them on the front end of that presentation call. I guess, are we talking about like when we first get them on the phone or the presentation?
No, like first, like, hey, this is Jason. I'm giving you a call back about the mortgage protection form or the life insurance form that you requested on Facebook.
Prospecting.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Which can lead into doing the presentation right there on the spot. Okay, so I mean, here a lot of it just has to do with your tonality. Like if you sound like a salesperson, I mean, you can have some energy, but be monotone like me. It's when you sound almost over enthusiastic, people don't want to hear that. They automatically put that wall up, and they're going to throw out lies and excuses of why they don't want to do it, because people can do it even when they don't need it. So it's really them wanting to buy from someone. They want to have a relationship. Some people want to have a relationship or a new friend, if you're doing final expense. So you got to, and they can go anywhere and talk to anyone and buy life insurance anywhere. Pretty easy nowadays. So really they're buying you. So if you sound confident and you're and you can get in the right, natural mode, like you're talking to a family member or talking to a cousin, just or a brother, and have that, real tone, that real tonality and natural tonality with them, it subconsciously disarms them. And then we can find out if there is actually someone here, find out there really is honestly a sale here or not within your first couple minutes. So some people, even if you do that with and you sound great, it could be a bad day for them. It could be just another a right day for them to buy insurance. Maybe you can just quickly wrap up the call and call them back another day. So, it just takes some experience on identifying what that might be, but initially, when you first start getting into this, is just remember, try to sound as natural and relaxed as you can. And yes, can be hard to do when you got your first bit of leads there, you're spending all your money on, and you got that commission breath, and it's got to work out. That can be tough. So preparing yourself for your day and getting the right exercise and staying healthy, and you being in the right mindset, yeah, exactly, and taking the emotion out of it, is going to prevent objections on that front end. If you get them, you will get them. You'll get them daily, and they could be a real one. It could be a smoke screen. Smoke screen means just a pseudo concern, not necessarily even an objection. It's going to be, best to just say, okay, great, agree with them, make a statement, and then ask a question. So I call it the 3 A's. So I know
Triple A, baby.
Yeah, so triple A. So it's other people, use this method, and I didn't create it. It's been around. It's probably been around before people started using the life insurance, but it's just agreeing with them, making a statement about it, and then pivoting to that question. So you're putting the ball back in their field, and that helps keep moving things along. So if you do that, like for instance, say someone says, "Oh yeah, I got a bunch of life insurance." Oh, that's great, good deal. Here we got this request. I'm just trying to figure this out and make sure we get this information out to you, and I do my job. Do you remember if it was the living benefits you saw on that ad, or that mail piece you got? Or was it the death benefit that you're trying to learn more about? And instead of saying that you're trying to get rates on, or make it, or get a policy today on, you're just kind of baby stepping them into it and making it more about getting the information first. Okay. So yeah, so that way it's not that much commitment from them from the very beginning. And you're going to do that technique the entire time until you get the banking information. So they need to slowly get, give and take until you get to that point where it's a done deal. So yeah, and so you just make it easy for them to continue with you on the phone, because the idea is to keep them on the phone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just use that method, whatever it might be. I mean, there's a lot of concerns and objections out there, but using that method helps you use your own words instead of reading an objections list and trying to memorize it. I mean, it's good to get some ideas from those things, but having that method will help you disarm, and you'll get better the more you do it. Because you're going to fail at first in doing it. But
big time. How do you overcome objections before they happen? Like, I need to think about it, or like banking and social objections, and like building trust on the call in your presentation. What are some ways to like kill those before?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So I always say there's a 2-part close. You're closing them on getting approved and moving into writing up the application. And then you have your second close, and that's commitment. And that's when they're actually coming up off of that banking information. So, and that's answer your question. Answer.
Kelly. Oh yeah, answer. Sorry.
Yeah. So acknowledge, answer, ask. So what you're doing, again, like I was saying a minute ago, you're baby stepping into that to that commitment. So you want to make sure they don't trick you in thinking, okay, here we go with the app, okay, let's get this information on the application. Here we go. Always, have a formality of giving them your information before you start asking their information. And it makes it look more professional. It keeps them from wondering in the back of their head and not verbalizing that concern, who the hell am I giving my information to? This person hasn't given me any information about them, and I just met them, and they're asking for my banking and social and my kids' names and everything else. So you
What
want to,
information do you give to them?
yeah. So I say, you still have that pen and paper? Okay, great. Write down my first name and last name, and I'm going to be your agent. I'm going to take care of you, and I'll walk you through this. And make sure you say those things. And then I'll say, here's my cell phone, here's my office line, and I'll read that over to him, and then I'll give him my license number for that state. If I can't locate it in time, I'll say, here's my national producer number. This is my national producer number, and it works with most states. It's the same number, but I'll give them a license number, and then from there, I'll continue saying, okay, great. Do you have a middle initial? And then just continue through the app. When I get, so here's the formula that I use. I go over their personal information, like social, and then for mortgage protection and general life, their employment. And so from there, I will go into beneficiary, and then, we're talking, about who we're doing this for. And then from there, medical questions, word for word, because you have to, and because it makes it more legitimate to them. They understand that this person's doing their job and doing it the right way. And from there, I'll go into their doctor's information, and then we'll review what they chose. Okay. So we're doing the 20-year, 250,000, and it looks like we're going to try to get you approved here. But remember, you have that 90-day change period. So if you do want to increase or decrease, we can do that later. And people like that too, because that way they don't feel like they're making an ultimate decision on the amount. They have some time to make some changes if they need to. So make sure when you're closing them on getting into the application, that you do mention the process, the non-medical process, and there's a change period. For a lot of carriers, it's 90 days, some that are just 30. And so from reviewing what we're doing again, I'll say to them, the effective date, when would you like your policy to go in place? This is also when they'll send for your payment. So, I use those words for a reason, like send for your payment. It again sounds, an easier way of saying they're going to draft your checking account.
Like, do you want it when do you want it taken out? It's like, oh, it makes me like want to like cringe. It's like, don't say that.
Right. And so when are we going into your account to take that first payment out?
Right. But it's little things like this that'll help the closing rate on
little
those
nuances, man. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so in the way you're asking these questions too, like if you say it in the same tonality and making it sound like, yeah, this is just part of the process, it's easier than, and then what you're doing, you're explaining it to them and taking your time. So that way, when they're over the phone, some people have a hard time learning and listening, without seeing. So you have to really go through it slow, the whole phone call with them, and make sure they're tracking you. Don't do all the talking. Ask them a little question like, did you want me to check the 10-year too? On these rates, make sure they're still following you. So, and they're engaged, because if you go into the app too quick, and they're just not going to do it. Yeah. So after the effective date, I'll say, okay, great. If there's two people, I'll say, are we using the same account for both of you? And just assuming at this point, assume. So if it's just one person, I'll say, what's the name of the bank that you want to set this up for? Okay, great. And then account routing number, what would that be? And then I'll use those words. I'll say, let's just do it. So subconsciously, I'll say, okay, and what's the name of the bank that you want to use? Okay, and then the account number, routing number, I'll say a little different each time. But then I'll just really assume and
Yeah.
get through that point. Once that's
So,
done,
oh yeah, go
don't
ahead.
don't hop off with them too quick because it's going to just make them nervous. So just what I do too here, you know, everyone has their own method of doing their app. I'll write the stuff on a paper app. Just so if I do have to switch companies or something, I don't have to re-ask all that stuff. You know, sometimes like Aetna, they don't have, you know, the full banking information. So I don't want to be typing it in and have to go somewhere else and re-ask that banking information.
Yeah.
So yeah, so just, you know, put it on paper app if you don't have a method yet. And then if that's what the case may be, then you can quickly pivot to going to the application website or wherever, you know, whatever insurance company you're using and still continue that conversation with them. So that way you can get the app done there, but you still have the paper app, but just quickly start inputting that information and talking to them and say, hey, you know, then 5 minutes into it, say, hey, can you pull up your email, or I'm about to send you a text signature or a text. I'm about to send you a number and you can get the text signature done that way. But yeah, try to get it done right there on the spot with them. You may be on the phone with them an hour at that point. Some people start getting antsy. So again, that's why you get that information, like the banking information, as quick as possible on a paper app, because you don't want someone walking through their door and disrupting them, or them just getting annoyed with the whole process and just jumping off the phone. And they're okay doing that because they haven't given the banking information yet.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's really you know, just what I found to work the best. You know, I'll try anything once. So I've tried a lot of different ways of doing this, and that's what's really, you know, I can do apps in like 45 minutes. If it's a young person just ready to get signed up, I can do an app and have the voice signature in the paper app in 15 minutes from saying hello.
Yeah.
So
It gets easier over time for sure. So how do you, that's really good. So that kind of covers how to go about that first payment. As you say, what date do you want this to go into effect? And then from there, that'll be the day that they send for payment. And then, yeah, just kind of go like that, right? So you're very like upfront. Hey, this is when the first payment's going to come out.
they know it's coming. It's like you're preparing them for the question you're about to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just
I know. I know a lot of people say like don't post date business. What would you say, like, and it's like always put it into effect right away. What would you say in that, in how has that helped your persistency being okay to post date?
post date. Well, I mean, if it's final expense, you want it to always be on their social security payment date. Because, I mean, I've had people set it for 2 days after for $340 a month. This was just back in February. He's like, well, you should have took it out on the 3rd. I'm like, you got rid of your whole social security check in 2 days and you were doing a $340 payment. I'm
Right.
like, can we please reduce this? He goes, no, I want this amount. I'm like, So we rewrote the app and put it on the 3rd, and it's been coming out on time ever since. So if it's final expense, make sure you're doing their social security payment date. The really just when you're asking them about the effective date, you know, you're giving them a chance to have a voice on when that comes out of their account, instead of just, yes, it you know, it kind of takes away the fact that yes, when you get it coverage, you never know when something's going to happen. But some people just care about their, you know, their money more than they do the life insurance, you know, and when that payment comes out, they want to get blindsided because maybe you forgot to tell them it's happening right away.
Yeah.
So it, you know, and it builds up a little, you know, payout pipeline, you know, so that way maybe it's kind of spread out over the place over the next week. When you first start getting into this, yes, you need to get paid quick so you can reinvest your money. So, you know, talk to them about, yeah, let's, you know, it's probably a good idea just to get this in place, and then, you know, or maybe just give them the option of, you know, what day over the next 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll do that. What day over the next week, what day over the next 2 weeks, If they're just really concerned about money, I'll say, and I have plenty of stuff paying out, I'll just say, okay, what would be best for you over the next 30 days to make that effective date? But you give them a perimeter a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. But that's for general life and mortgage protection. For final expense, it needs to be on that date for Social
Okay.
Security.
Yeah, that's good. And then how do you overcome them like on the back end? Like, hey, you go into like the closing questions. Hey, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. I need to shop around. How do you overcome those?
Mhm. Those are the worst. Yeah, I mean, overcoming them is making sure that you have, um, both decision makers there, and identifying that from the very beginning. That's a big thing with mortgage protection. And while we unfortunately have to set more appointments than you will on general life and final expense, but making sure as best you can, even if they only want one person to be there, we actually have a rebuttal of if they say, well, I make all the decisions, they'll lie to you and say, oh, well, I need to talk to my husband, I need to talk to my spouse,
Big time.
so, it just gives them that excuse in their back pocket. So, yeah, just making sure it's not a one-legged appointment if that's the case from the very beginning, before you give rates. But when you do get it, and you will get it, just like, just agree with them again. Just say, great, yeah, absolutely. Do that 3A again. Great. I think that's a great idea. Then you can make your statement, your answer. I don't know if, we're even able to get this approved for you. What we could do is, and then take control and ask a question. But the question you would ask would be, again, you're circling back around and asking for that cell, and you're doing that, you're circling back around asking for that cell, that app, several times, but you don't want to be too pushy. Sometimes you do have to set a follow-up just to make sure you're not losing the deal because they're not an immediate buyer. You'll say, I always go off of their medical, like, yeah, you have that blood pressure. I hope I can get you this preferred rate. I mean, let's see if we can even do that. Sometimes I'll incorporate if they have a birthday coming up, that's always great.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, about to get 1 year older, we gotta get this done.
Yeah.
So yeah, just talking about trying to get you approved, because you do have this medicine that's showing up for blood pressure. Playing off of eligibility helps with that, and then get their feedback, and yeah, just try to get into the app and say, hey, and then slide in there saying, there's no payment due up front. We just need to see about getting you approved. And so they're like, okay, that's fine. If they really are a buyer, they'll say, okay, yeah, that's fine. Sometimes they may not be a buyer, or you didn't sell them on some insurance.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to get off the phone with you.
Yeah, that's good. Gio asks, how do you overcome when they say, I want to make sure I get approved, then I'll give my banking info? It's a good question.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll be trained on, as we say, well, when we send this to them, we're just showing them consideration because they need to have everything they need to put this policy in place once it gets approved for several reasons. They're putting a salary employee, an underwriter on this, and we just can't be sending a bunch of apps without, that commitment of doing it. And I'll explain that to them. There's just for consideration. And then you don't want to, have a policy that lapses immediately because they don't have a payment. And really, they don't want to go chasing around people for payments after, and I don't either. Like, I will just be upfront with them, be like, hey, for me to spend my time on this, and for the insurance company, which is the real reason, they want to make sure there's some commitment there. So, they're not going to do a payment right away, but just let we're going to start off at this amount and make sure that you're comfortable with that before we even send them an app, and then get back to making it about them.
Yeah.
So it's it's a finesse. You got to finesse it.
Yeah,
But,
big time.
you know, saying it with confidence and, you know, some, what's the word I'm using? You know, some force there, but just being a matter of fact really helps.
Yeah. I want to open it up to questions here as we wrap up here. So just raise your hand raise your hand on Zoom and we'll start kind of lining these up. There's a couple more questions I want to ask, just practicalities. What are presentations a day and a week that an agent should be striving for to hit that 10 to 15,000 a week threshold?
As many as you can. I mean, you know, a lot of people have a hard time answering. I tell you, that'll be almost your first obstacle is just getting people on the phone. I mean, it it can be tough sometimes. So you got to triple call every time. You got to, you know, well, let me answer your question first. So I would say, you know, good tied down appointments. If you're setting appointments and not doing final expense and running on the spot, then you need just to fill your calendar up as much as you can because of, you know, people no showing sometimes. And, you know, just to throw a number at it, you know, 8 appointments a day. So when you could do things in groups, like on Monday, you can set and run at the same time. But when you're setting up for your Tuesday, Wednesday, and then between appointments and during no shows, hopping immediately back on the phone during that next 2 days, you know, during your appointment days, Tuesday, Wednesday, to start setting up for Wednesday and for Thursday and Friday. So it's just really stay on the phone and either, you know, setting appointments and looking for new customers or presentations or running your presentations, but just constantly staying on the phone.
Yeah.
And if you're going to
ask, when you triple dial, do you hang up and call back 3 times? Yeah. So you bang, 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 like ring, 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 hang up, ring, 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 like 4 dials, hang up, and then ring, 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 hang up again. That's like a triple dial.
Yeah. You'll come at them pretty quick. Like one of the agents kind of has us all doing just 4 rings and out, not letting it go 6 or 7 rings because that's going to take up some more time. So let it ring 4 times. They'll answer, hang up, call again, because they're probably silencing their phone on that second ring, the first ring. So you're literally just wasting your time a lot of times.
Yeah.
So yeah, let it dial 4 times, hang up, call again, do that 3 times. And if you don't have any, I mean, yeah, you don't want to have any nervousness when they answer because they're going to think you're doing something wrong. And what you're doing is really just trying to resolve their request. Okay. And you don't want to have to keep calling them 6 more times later that day or that week.
Yeah.
So you're really doing them a justice. Let's get this figured out. So, you know, you're either buying it or not.
Big time. That's
Yeah.
good. Chelsea asked, if you do have a carrier decline, what do you say to the client, or how do you pivot going to another application or carrier? And then Daryl, be ready for your question because I'm going to you next.
Yeah. So do it if you're doing term stuff, mortgage protection, general life, know your process and learn your underwriting, you know, get your underwriting skills tuned up. So that way you can look to identify someone who has to go whole life, you know, from the very beginning. So you can explain that mortgage payment protection program or the whole life option instead of that term they were asking about. So, you know, making sure you're not getting a lot of turn downs because it's going to waste your time. It's going to just discourage the customer and not look good with the carriers over time. But identifying it. But when I do get a turn down, yeah, I'll just say, you know, I'll call them back and review their health again. What I'll first do is call the carrier and figure out why they were turned down and really dig in with them and call them. Don't do any chats or anything with them. Call them up and try to get them to tell you what question on the application should have been yes. And then call the customer and dive in with their health. You're going, and those buyers are liars. And then a lot of stuff will start coming up at that point. You're like,
Yep.
do that. So, and then you try to figure out a solution from there. But when they start telling you new stuff, that gives you some leverage on going to, the next option. But yeah, I'll then get them to, I'll get an app prepared and do the signature with them and get them resubmitted.
Yeah.
Is that any question?
Yeah, that's good. Daryl, what's up, man?
What's up, Dick?
Yo, what's up? How's it going, Jason?
Good,
Appreciate you
man.
being on this call with us, man.
Yeah. From San Francisco,
oh,
huh?
yeah, that's nice, man. I wanted to ask you, Jason, as me being a new agent, I wanted to know, like, what would you like think would be like the fastest way to like get to a base level of skill in like the first week or two to from like point. So what I'm trying to ask is like, what's like the fastest way you've seen like some of the agents you probably helped within like their first couple of weeks into the industry get from like point A to point B of like helping a family and getting to a consistent level of being able to do that? What's the quickest way you've seen agents being able to get to that point in their first couple of weeks?
Like getting their first couple apps done.
Yeah, like consistently and not just like on a consistent level, like being able to help a client.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it has to do with, learning to put aside the personal stuff and communicating with your family to make sure you're not getting interrupted and you're able to show up and do the activity and make sure
Yeah.
you're, because there's a learning curve to it.
Yeah,
Learning the products, learning what to recommend, having a go-to solution that you learn quickly, and getting in front of as many people as possible, because it's going to take more presentations to get the same result that you'll get later on. So yeah, just throwing up more, getting past the learning curve, throwing up as much as you can in presentations and learning from that. Sometimes, to make sure you're learning and you're helping the customer out the right way, the person who brought you in this business should be giving you some suggestions on, what to do, or based on that customer situation. Like, you may get all the details, like, what are they looking for, what their health is, what current coverage they have, and then say, hey, yeah, if you don't mind, I want to make sure I do right by you. Let me find out from my manager, what to recommend to you here, and I'll call you right back. Or if you want to hang on for a minute, let me make a phone call. And if you're sincere about it and you're really putting forth the effort, they'll answer when you call back, because you haven't given them the numbers yet. When you give them the numbers, the rates, then the sales process is over. So you got to be ready to ask for that app immediately after. But yeah, just leaning on the people who bring you into this and having a game plan for how you're going to spend your investment, and getting, make sure you're using your money the right way, and you have some goals set up too, like what your goals are, and hold yourself and have them hold you accountable to reaching those goals. And then, you could fall short of them, you could exceed them, but just doing that will help the accountability part of it. And then again, just consistently buying leads and getting to them quick. Speed to lead is pretty huge. When you get your lead in front of you, call them right away. Okay. Make sure you follow up with people. And something to add too, with people not answering the phone, get several phone numbers from different area codes and mix it up as you call through the leads. Like, call through a page of leads with one area code, go back over that same page later that afternoon from a different area code. I just wanted to add that in there real quick. But yeah, just making sure, you're showing up and not letting those distractions get in your way. Easier said than done. I mean, it takes depending on what you're coming from, sales or working customer service, or being an engineer or whatever it might be, you got to learn something new, and you got to have the discipline as an independent agent to get in the activity, you know, the calls and the learning curve and the ups and downs, the heavy volatile ups and downs in the beginning, and stick to it and just understand you can be successful and have a great ROI in this if you stick with it and you don't quit.
Yeah.
So
100%. Great question, Daryl. What other questions you guys have? We could answer a couple more here real quick.
I got another one.
go for it,
All right.
Daryl.
Cool. Let's go, Daryl. Daryl.
Hit the wrong button.
Oh, so you write 28K? You said you wrote 28K in 4 days, right?
Hmm.
I was just curious on how that workload was for you, like on a day-to-day basis. Like how much time out the day were you working? What was the process like when you was going for that?
Well, you know, obviously had someone helping with prepping apps and playing out voice signature stuff, you know, the processing part, and Angie was calling and setting the same time as I was running. So it's like two people working on it, because when you're doing it by yourself, you're not going to have the gas to, you know, most of the time get that much production in it until you have some people helping you out. So, but you got to do it yourself and get the adequate level, 7,000 to 8,000 a week. And then once you consistently do that and you have some decent cash flow coming in, hire somebody to help you out and train them yourself. So yeah, I mean, she would set me up on the hour appointments, you know, from anywhere from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's putting in a solid 12 and chaining myself to this desk to, you know, put forth the effort and get that production in. But yeah, and when you do have a week like that, I tell you, a big problem for some people who have big successes like that is that they'll pull back and they'll get off that rhythm the following weeks because they're like, oh, I got all this money coming. Yeah, but that'll get ate up really quick if you don't stay on track. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of talking doing that. I mean, those weeks, you know, I had some pretty big apps though, like 3,000 AP or 4, you know, not really 4, I don't have often 4, but 3,500 or 2,500, a couple, you know, several $2,500 apps. But yeah, it's bringing them in. I mean, with mortgage protection, there's a lot of spousal apps. So when I sell an appointment, it's usually 2 apps. And I would say about 40 to 50% of the time it's like that.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. It's more of a learning curve than final expense and general life insurance. And people just don't correlate it with life insurance. Sometimes they're like, the customers are like, well, I got life insurance. I just need some mortgage protection now. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's always the funniest. Sweet. Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming on here. It's been really good. What is the number one piece of advice you could give a telesales agent to wrap up here?
I would say make sure you put your money, you know, you have a decent amount of money coming into this. You know, timing can be a lot of things for people. You know, or timing, yeah, for most people. Make sure it's the right timing, make sure you have the right amount of money saved up. And when you dive into this, can't second guess and stick your toe in it. You got to jump all in.
Yep.
Johnny, that's the way Johnny do it. He was the yes man when he came into this. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. Let me sign up for this. Let me sign up for that. You got to be careful not to do that too far because you'll exhaust your funds. But you know, his belief level was so high. He was just like, let's go. And I mean, Johnny, you did $22,000 in mortgage protection production his first week with me.
Yeah.
I mean, just boom, because he was taking
All over the
everything
phone too.
all over the phone. So you did that at 15 to 20 level for several weeks in a row. But yeah, you make sure you have a decent amount of money coming into this, and you do put in the right activity, and show up. It is a very fine line of putting in a lot of activity and doing nothing all day. You know, you just gotta not even think about it a lot of times and just do it.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, go
American
to
Amicable is his guy,
yeah.
his go-to. That's funny. So Jason, where can people reach out, follow you, follow the Savvy Producer? Where can people reach out, find you, and get training from you?
Yeah. If you go to savvyproducer.com, or you can just reach out to me by email, jason@lifeshieldfinancial.com or jason@savvyproducer.com. I'll chat with you. I mean, I got the Facebook pages, Instagram, all that stuff. There you go. There's Savvy Producer website.
So this is his website. So if you guys want training, there's everything here. Go check it out, just Savvy Producer. So go check that out. There's a ton of stuff there. But you
Yeah.
said Jason at what financial? Just so people could email you if they want to work with you.
Yeah, lifeshieldfinancial.com or jason@savvyproducer.com.
Boom.
I got a couple of videos up on YouTube. I need to get back into the social media stuff.
You do, bro.
Yeah, I gotta take after you, Johnny.
Yes, sir.
Great with that.
Well, Jason, I appreciate you coming on here. And that's a slight plug. If you guys are not creating content, just start creating content. Even if you're not like killing it right now, just start creating content. Start documenting the journey, because I guarantee you're gonna you'll thank me later. Stop what you're doing right now, take a video and be like, hey, this is what I'm learning right now, and just post it. Who cares what you think? Because the reality is, real quick, the reality is most people aren't going to watch it. So like the people who you think you care about their opinions, probably not going to see it. And if they do see it, who cares?
If they do see it, they'll forget about it 15 seconds later.
Exactly, because they'll watch another video right after that. So it's like, and when people start watching and they'll be like, oh, I remember that guy, and they go through the database looking, hey, I remember. That's how I have a vlog from 4 years ago when I started my clothing line. And it's like, it's crazy to see that transition. So I am 100% start creating content. You're not going to be good at first, and that's okay. Shameless plug just to do it.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't have like anything to sell on that end, but like it's just for your guys' best interest on that front.
Yeah, share what you've learned. Don't feel like you're giving away secrets. I mean, people are only 3% of the people that listen to your secrets or even slightly apply it.
Maybe.
So maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Jason, appreciate you coming on here, man.